Hello everyone, James Webb here. This is CinemaWeb. Now, for those of you who know me, know that I like to kind of dig deep into a topic when I get interested in it, and Guzzo got me curious about other shot-on-video Japanese rarities, so I looked up and saw what I could find, and that brings us to a few more titles that I'm going to talk to you about in the next few weeks. Guzzo was, of course, our first of these shot-on-video series. Today, we're talking about another movie, also from 1986. It's called Biotherapy. In several ways, Biotherapy is very different from Guzzo. For one, unlike Guzzo's director, who seemed like it might have been their first time, but it wasn't, as far as I can tell, this may be Biotherapy's director's first and possibly only movie. Looks like he did some more TV work after Biotherapy, but not much film credits to his name. Also, surprisingly, the special effects artist, I can't find any more credits for him, which makes me wonder if he got maybe some kind of new pseudonym that he worked under after Biotherapy. Because actually, the effects in Biotherapy are in several ways more impressive than the ones in Guzzo. They're both kind of creature features, but they definitely have different inspirations, which we will talk about a little bit later into this review. But for now, let's move on to our content warnings. Biotherapy includes 6 human deaths. It has a runtime of 35 minutes, so it averages about 1 death every 5 minutes. In addition to that, it has one real standout special effect, which we are going to talk about a little bit later. It also has some pretty shameless footage repetition and a fairly mind-numbingly stupid plot. Of course, we're going to be getting into all of that very soon. Similar to Guzzo, this review is going to utilize a warning bell system. When you hear the warning bell, then it means it's time to avert your eyes if you count yourself among our more sensitive viewers. Now, without further ado, let's get started. So, Biotherapy starts with some shots of the ocean for seemingly no reason, followed by a guy, who's Dr. Date, driving in a car. He sees a blinding flash of light and almost crashes his car. Then he looks up at some shooting stars and wonders if they're connected to the reason Dr. Hirose called him out there. Why? Why would these two things be connected? You know, if you're going to go visit your friend and you happen to see a shooting star, do you wonder, is that why I'm visiting my friend? No, because that's insane. Then cut to Dr. Hirose. He's working on something called GT medicine, which changes colors because of the shooting stars. Wait, that does not seem like science, and I guess, sorry, Dr. Date, you were right? Now it's time for our antagonist to appear. Our antagonist has taken his inspiration from a few obvious sources. With his hidden face, hat, and black leather gloves, he definitely looks like a killer from an Italian giallo movie or something like that. He also has this rhythmic breathing track that they play that definitely is reminiscent of Jason. Now, he's got one more very notable inspiration, but we're going to talk about that one a little bit later on. He does have this cool purple aura that's kind of unique. Whenever he appears, there's the flash of light and then his weird purple aura around his body, which I think is kind of cool, actually. Well, we're coming up to the 5-minute mark. It means it's time for someone to die. Now, guys, we're going to pause for a second. because remember I mentioned one standout special effect? Well, it's here. Yeah, they open the movie with it, and it is a spectacular special effect. Honestly, one of the most impressive that I've seen, but it is also very gruesome, possibly too gruesome for just a warning bell. So I'm warning you, you can probably tell what's about to happen based on what you have currently seen. Now, if you're still with me, let's see what happens. Alright folks, and there is the title card. Now that special effect is very impressive. It's probably the best eye gouging scene I've seen. It definitely comes close. I think it beats most of the amazing number of eye gouges featured in Fulci's films, such as The Beyond or Zombie. Now part of what makes that scene so effective is the length of time that they draw it out. The antagonist puts his hand on the guy's face, shakes, you can see that he's applying some pressure, you know something bad's going to happen. It takes 14 seconds from the moment that he puts his hand on there to the point in which the eye is coming out, which is a pretty long time to build anticipation. And I think the anticipation of what's to come plus the graininess of the VHS really makes that scene quite disgusting. So next we spend some time talking about what GT medicine actually is. It causes animals to grow up to 10 times faster than normal. This could, of course, reduce world hunger, prevent famine, things like that. It does have a unfortunate side effect. If it's poured into the oceans, it can kill all plankton, and that would wipe out entire ecosystems, possibly kill everybody on Earth. So that's got to get fixed, doesn't it? And then suddenly, Mayumi enters the scene. Wait! What? Doesn't she look familiar? That is Ishikawa Yumiko. Just so happens, this girl. She has literally only been in 2 horror movies in the 80s, and somehow I got both of them right in a row. That's ridiculous. Anyway, back to the movie. We're 10 minutes in, so the villain is back. Our lady scientist is punctured with some test tubes, and oh, stop playing the footage in reverse. You can't stretch the runtime that way. And then he pulls out her tongue because I don't know. They hear something back at the lab and run back. Wait a minute. Where are we? They just stepped out. Is this outside the... Oh, okay. Back to the lab. Now, unlike most horror movies, they actually go and talk to the police. Mayumi is pretty shaken up by the kills, so the director gets to use the same footage one more time. But she's approached by Maeda, the lab assistant. He informs her that Dr. Hirose has also died and that Dr. Date needs Dr. Hirose's notes to improve the GT medicine. Guys, it's 17 minutes in. Our bad guy's running a bit late, isn't he? Oh, there he is. Okay. Oh no, is Ishikawa Yumiko gonna get her guts pulled out again? Oh no, it's an off-screen kill of Maeda, alright. But yeah, Mayumi's still having a pretty tough day. So they go into the lab for the research and, well, at least they were consistent with the alleged layout of the building, even though that corridor definitely doesn't match the building or the hallway outside the lab or anything like that. And then they search for the notes on floppy disk? Oh, this is gonna take a what? Wait, do we have to do this in real time? Oh, we are 20 minutes in, right on time this time. Wait, this guy's got psychic powers? Well, while they run away, some detectives appear. Of course, the villain is bulletproof, and he loses a glove, revealing he's not human after all. And it's time for what I think is the second nastiest scene of the movie. I've kind of got a thing for knocking some teeth out. That's gross. Now he kills that second detective too because we got a schedule to keep. We're nearing the 25-minute mark and 5 people have died. Now they escape in a car and, oh, it's Dr. Date. Now by killing the 2 detectives at the same time, that earns us a solid 5 minutes of discussion about plankton. Riveting. At the lab, they discover Dr. Hirose's body. What the heck, guys? Multiple people have mentioned that Dr. Hirose is dead, right? So that means they knew he died. Someone had already discovered the body, but left it there? All day? He was killed last night. It is now night of the following day, and Dr. Hirose has just been left there, lying on the ground, I guess with his eyeball still on the counter. Show some respect, guys. Fortunately, instead of painstakingly checking each floppy disk like the other guy, Dr. Date reads the labels. Oh, our villain arrived slightly early so that he'd have some exposition time too before we get to our next kills. It turns out this guy is from the future, a far future he says we cannot imagine. He is the second race of Earthlings after Homo sapiens completely wiped themselves out with global warming. Kind of topical, I guess. Now, this new race of Earthlings evolved from bacteria that came on shooting stars. That's, I guess, a callback to before, but don't worry, they will not explain why the GT medicine changes color. Now, he has traveled back in time to obtain the GT medicine before it can be completed and perfected, because after it's perfected, it prolongs the lifespan of the Homo sapiens by preventing famine, as we kind of mentioned before. He wants to use the version 1 to kill all plankton, thus ending humans' reign on Earth far earlier and giving his race a 500-year head start. That does not make any sense at all. That would be like if I went back in time to introduce smartphones in 1920 so that I could see what kind of fascinating technology would then exist today. That's an insane plan. Especially because he's gone to before his civilization even exists. If he makes a tiny misstep, he could completely wipe out his race. So either his race gets 500 extra years of development and he goes back and everything's more high-tech. They already have time travel, though. Or he accidentally exterminates his entire race. This seems like a terribly risky, terribly dangerous plan. Anyway, future Earthling attacks Date and loses his mask, revealing his real face. So this is where we can mention that third influence that's kind of obvious on him is Ultraman. He looks a lot like an Ultraman monster, and his plot is even somewhat like something from a goofy episode of Ultraman, just a very violent one. It also kind of reminds me of the Guyver because the Guyver's monsters are a lot stickier and slimier like this guy. So Dante's in trouble, and they use some more reverse footage and a freeze frame. Oh, and zoom in. You're really trying to push that time out. The other scientist gets an eye full of, I don't know, but it's probably not good. And Dante, despite having his guts hanging out, pours GT medicine on the future Earthling. So, the future Earthling loses his arm and retreats into a future where he has most likely destroyed his entire race. He's really messed up. He's probably going to a doomed future now. If he doesn't, I'd be kind of surprised. The dying Date tells the other scientist, who I guess is just green now, to destroy all of the GT1 and use the floppy disk to create GT2, which is now about a week ahead of schedule. Oh, geez. Future Earthling's plan was terrible. Mayumi and her boyfriend talk about the sacrifice of the other scientists and how GT2 will save the Earth. Now let me tell you, Biotherapy, I think, is considerably less interesting than Guzzo. That said, it is shorter, and it has a very impressive kill count for 35 minutes. 6 kills in 35 minutes is pretty nuts, and you get a pretty cool looking monster at the same time. I like his purple aura. Anyway, if you're interested in checking out Biotherapy, it is very difficult to track down a legitimate copy. Nobody's distributed this outside of Japan. I have seen a cover of the movie with a DVD symbol in the corner, which means that there might be a DVD release in Japan. That said, if you look hard enough, you could probably find a copy on a streaming website. Type it into the search bar. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Biotherapy, and I hope you'll join us next time on CinemaWeb.